We're going to have invocation by Pastor Morrison first, and then our wife Eleanor will lead us in the pledge, and then we'll start the program. Pastor?
Okay. Let's pray. Gracious God, we thank you that we are a free people tonight. We have freedom in this great country of ours to speak. We have freedom to gather publicly and assemble. And we have freedom to worship you in our choice. God, help us to be responsible with those freedoms tonight. Let the words that are spoken be words of truth, responsibly said in love. And thank you that we can be a people with differences of opinion and yet still be one people, united under God. And for all of these freedoms that we have, we ask that you would help us to use those freedoms wisely, with integrity and responsibly. We ask your blessing upon us all this evening in this free country that we live in. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, everybody up. Shoulder back, stand tall and proud because we are a free country. Hand over the heart, pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We've got a full program this evening, but we have a little bit of housekeeping to do for the regular members of South Rockdale Civic Association. And we invite everyone to join South Rockdale Civic. It's $25 a year for family. The lady you would see would be Lynn Williamson, wherever she might be. Not here. She's busy.
She's in the kitchen if you need to pay your dues.
Yeah. We first are going to just let you know a little bit of the format for the past year. We have a meeting tonight. We have a meeting in October, and then November is our dinner. This evening, Herb Parker will tell you who is on the nominating committee for the officers for next year. In October, we will announce the slate of candidates, and then at the November meeting, the attending South Rockdale Association members will vote on their slate of officers, and we take nominations from the floor. If you are a member of South Rockdale and you would like to be a member of the board or an officer, you would need to see Mr. Herb Parker, and the two people he will show you tonight are on the nominating committee. There is a little bit of work involved in being on the director and officer, but it's a lot of fun and it's very rewarding. Now I'll go ahead and turn this portion of it over to Herb Parker. He has an amendment that we need to present to our membership.
The nominating committee is made of myself, John Hammond, and Dan Purcell.
John and Dan, we don't stand up, please. Where's Dan?
Dan.
Oh, Dan's behind you.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, the South Rockdale Civic Association bylaws, Article 11, amendments. A vote to amend Article 4, Officer, Paragraph 5, Treasurer, last sentence as follows. The treasurer shall not write checks in the amount exceeding $500 without authorization of the president or 3 directors for each check. To amend as follows. The treasurer shall not write checks in the amount exceeding $200 without authorization of the president or 5 directors for each check. Having been presented and approved by a unanimous vote of the South Rockdale Civic Association directors, a vote is now called for by the majority of all members, representing the majority of all members present at any annual special meeting for adoption. So, all those in favor of adopting, say aye. Aye. All those against? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the moderator for this evening is going to be John Hammonds. I'm going to be the timekeeper for the candidates that are here. When the blue light comes on, you've got 30 seconds. When the red light comes on, your time ran out. And before we jump into that, I'd like to go from my left to my right. Individuals that are in the county that are officials who are not on stage tonight, if you would please stand and be recognized. Dwight. Oh, sorry. Dwight's having a little bit of early dinner, or late dinner. And Mr., oh, excuse me, sorry, Mr. Nesbitt there, but it's anybody back here I'm missing that's, any officials from Rockdale? Judge, you're not on stage tonight.
I'm Rudy Horn.
And all of our deputies in plain clothes, I can see you now.
Jim McBrail, Board of Education.
Thank you, sir. Going further and further to my right, anybody jumping up? Anybody else? Well, we do have some dignitaries in the audience tonight, and that is our news media. We have Alice Quaid with us here on the front row.
You have Willis Brown.
Oh, Judge Brown, I'm sorry, you're not on stage tonight.
That's true, thank God.
And is anybody here from the Rockdale News yet?
They're never on.
Very good. You do? All right, that does it. At this point in time, I will turn the stage over to John Hammonds, and he'll start off. We will start with the tax commissioner race. So Dan, if you'll come on up, and John will get started.
Thank you. I can't, I don't have a man to say. How about the ones behind you, so they can go very far?
Yes.
Hello, Ted. Okay. All right. Mr. Hadley obviously does not seem to be with us this evening, so we'll be directing questions to Mr. Ray. And we have a 2-minute opening and a 2-minute close, and we will keep it to see how long the questions are. But we try to stay within a moderate time frame so that we don't keep everybody here all night long. So with a show of hands, person with a question. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, 2-minute opening. Go ahead, Dan, I'm sorry.
All right, thank you all. This is a heck of a night for me to have to come out and do a forum. I imagine if you've made it home, you've found my love letter. So I'm a little trepid getting up here once you all got my good news in the mail tonight. But anyway, I'm Dan Ray. I'm your tax commissioner and have been for the last 19 plus years. Would very much like to serve you another 4 years and hope that you would find in your heart to support me and vote for me for your tax commissioner for the upcoming term, November the 6th. I've served diligently. I've got a bachelor's degree in management, master's degree in finance. I've been tax commissioner of the year. I've been constitutional officer of the year. I believe that I have a great staff that works for me, and I will disagree with Judge Brown, who claimed to have the best staff at her meeting Saturday. But we have a lot of folks that come by to see us. I compare my numbers to DeKalb County. Over 70% of their tag work is done through the mail, and only about 15 to 17% of my tag work is done through the mail, and I credit a lot of that to you get good customer service when you come to see me. And so I appreciate that, but you can't do it in the mail, you can do it online, you can do it on the IVR phone system if you don't want to come to the office, but all roads lead to Conyers, and so I leave when everybody heads into town and says, well, I better run by the tag office and pick up my tags, and now you get to come by and pay your taxes. Any questions?
All right. Thank you, Dan. Let me get this on this table. You ready, Dan?
Yes?
There's some seats behind you if you'd like to have a seat. All right, first question.
I just want to point of clarification to maybe you or Don. Did Mr. Hadley respond? I know he responded to me when I invited him, and I passed it on to you. Did he respond that he was confirming or not?
He did not respond.
And my question to Dan is, Dan, before we all go home and open our mail, do we expect to see things go down or go up?
Well, that's one of those that all depends. The millage rate stayed the same. So if your value decreased, you're gonna see a lower tax bill this year. If your value increased, you're gonna see a higher tax bill. If your value stay the same, then you're gonna have the same tax bill you had from last year. It will be a little bit lower. We were able to raise the host. Sales tax collections are up, so the host credit for those who are homesteaders is 98% this year. We were about $12,000–$15,000 short of being able to get 100%. So need to spend just a little bit more money this year, so maybe next year we get 100%.
I have another question over here while I'm on this side of the room.
Commissioner Ray, you probably answered some of these questions 1,000 times. I'm sorry, I have not had a chance to get any of the forms. Was it be so patient?
If you would put the microphone to your mouth so we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
That's better, thank you.
Then why do you want to be the tax commissioner again? I have 4 questions for you.
Okay.
Why do you want to do this again? What improvements would you like to implement in your office? Do you intend on any changes? And what are the striking differences between you and your opponent?
He's here.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Well, first of all, I felt like I was called to the job, to do the job. I enjoy it. You have to have a heart of service to want to do this job. It's very rewarding to get to help people. And my job probably has the least amount of discretionary power. A lot of people think I have a lot of authority, but there's very few things that I really can do. But the number one thing I can do is to talk to people, to listen to people, and try to educate and explain to them why things are the way they are. A good example was just this afternoon. Ms. Griffith called me. She calls me every year and wants to know why she doesn't have a homestead exemption on her tax bill. That's because she doesn't live there. She had to tear her house down. She's moved in with her daughter. Every year she calls me and I explain that to her. We have a nice long conversation, and I can tell my wife, she told me she loved me tonight. She said I could tell her, but she says, thank you for listening to me and talking to me. But serving people is what really counts. What's the second?
About improvements you want to make in the next term, improvements.
Well, volumes are generally always increasing. We've kind of leveled off with the stagnation due to the recession. So I'm always looking for technological improvements that we can be more efficient and effective. That's the way I was raised 18 years in a wire manufacturing plant. Always do more with less. So we always look for ways to try to do more with less. And hiring extra people is the last thing I want to do. One of the things we're looking at is to capitalize on a new piece of equipment they have in the water department, that we may be able to use their equipment to process volumes of mail. They have a piece that can do that. It will open it up, read the bill, do the check. So that's one of the things that we look to do in the near future.
And can you explain the differences between you and your opponent, Mr. Hadley? Oh, Mr. Hadley
Yes.
here.
Is Mr. Hadley here? I thought I heard someone make a comment a while ago that Mr. Hadley was here.
He meant that he was here. That was
His
the
name
difference.
was
Well, I mean, I can only speak for myself. I mean, I have the educational experience, a master's degree in finance, 20 years of experience. I've got hundreds of hours of training by the Department of Revenue. I am actively involved in legislation. I'm the chairman of the Tax Commissioner Association's Legislative Committee. So I spend a lot of time at the legislature, not so much there to set policy, but to try to give them some direction as how to administer. You know, there'll be a great idea to how to change the law, whether it be dealing with motor vehicle or property taxes, but we try to go up there and say, okay, this is what you want to do, here's the way to do it, so that we can actually do it whenever the rubber meets the road, you might say, in the office there. And, so that's the differences.
One question from myself, correct me if the numbers are wrong, but I've heard that some of our surrounding counties have between 70 and 80, mid-80% collection of taxes, and you have a better than 99%?
That is correct. For 2011 taxes, we're at 99.6% collections.
Mr. Ray, I'm now understanding that I know you didn't have anything to do with this. Can you explain the coming changes concerning the car tax?
I believe you're referring to House Bill 386 that goes into effect next March of 2013. The media picked it up and kind of advertised it as we were abolishing ad valorem taxes on motor vehicles. That is partially true. The vehicles that are purchased after March 1st of 2013, at the time of purchase, they're doing away with the sales tax, but they're implementing a title fee, an ad valorem title fee. And it'll be a one-time upfront, and it starts out at 6.5%. And then you will not have to pay ad valorem tax on that vehicle from there on out. You'll still pay the annual $20 renewal fee for your registration, but you won't have to pay any ad valorem taxes on that vehicle. Now, they have a little caveat in there. If you purchase a car from January 1st of this year through February 28th of 2013, there's an opt-in provision to where if you already paid enough sales tax and enough ad valorem tax to equal the 6.5% on the market value of the car, then you can opt in and not pay any ad valorem tax if you have to renew in 2013.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ray, you just said that they're abolishing the sales tax on automobiles. My question is, how much of that sales tax for automobiles is in the host calculation? Because if they're abolishing that out of motor vehicles, we have a real problem here in Rockdale.
I agree. The unfortunate part of it is that nobody really knows what the impact is. I can tell you how many new vehicle, or not new, how many total number of titles that my office has processed, say, last year. The problem is that since there's no taxes usually associated as far as ad valorem tax at the time of purchase, we do not capture the value of what that car's retail value was at that point in time. So I can tell you, well, we processed, 15,000 titles last year, but I can't tell you what the value is because it's going to be a matter of the, number of titles times the value times the 6.5% equals the amount of title fee we're going to collect. So there's a big question mark out there as to how this is going to fiscally impact the counties and the school system. And the way that works is that, just in a round number, half the money goes to the state out of that 6.5%. About half the money goes to the state, half goes to what's called local funds. And out of that local funds, the first cut that I do, well, let's say March of 2013 is come and gone. I will compare the ad valorem tax collections for March of 2012 to what was collected in 2013, because the rest of our cars will still have ad valorem tax on them. And I compare those two. And the first cut of money I take and make whole the amount of taxes so that what I pay out in March of 2013 will be the same amount that I paid out in 2012. And that just rolls on from month to month to month. Then what's left over, hopefully, there's some left over, then that gets divvied up kind of along with the sales tax. The school gets a third, the county gets a third, and then the last third gets cut up with the SPOS. The host gets a third, and the school gets their SPOS. So there's a big question mark as to how this is going to really impact us.
All right, next. I've been informed that there's 30 seconds allowed to ask the question if necessary.
Gotta talk fast. You said that you collect 99% of the taxes in the county. What would you attribute that to? Richer people here?
No. I attribute it to the consistency of each year in and year out, that, I aggressively pursue those who are delinquent. And the word's out. You have to pay your taxes. If you're going to live in Rockdale County, you have to pay your taxes. And two things that make that important, that we have that kind of collection rate. Number one, the part that saves us money is that the 99.6% collection improves our bond rating. One of the reasons we have a AAA bond rating is because our collections are so high. And I had the bond fellow up in New York tell me that when we were upgraded a few years back because of those collections. The other thing is, let's say we stayed at 85 or 90% collections. Well, the budget's got to be funded. So if we let 10% of the people slide, that means we've got to raise taxes by 10% more on those who pay. So if everybody pays, then everybody's taxes, you know, have that downward pressure on them, and we get the benefit of an excellent bond rate.
Yeah, one right here.
And Dan, does the property tax run from January 1st to December 31st?
In Georgia, that is correct. In Georgia, it's a snapshot of what's happening on January 1st. You just have to pick some day. And that includes the condition of the property, the value of the property, the ownership of the property. In other words, if your house is going to burn down, you want it to burn down on December 31st, not on January 2nd. Because if it burns down on January 2nd, the house was there on January 1st, and guess what? You pay taxes on the whole house, even though it burned down. So but the legislature just had to pick a date and time. You couldn't, you know, so January 1st is it in Georgia, and that's by Constitution. Everything is valued as of January the 1st.
Okay, to follow up on that, then the taxes are actually due, or are you penalized if you pay them December 31st?
They are due November the 15th. That is correct. By action of law, the liability is created on January 1st. It's just that it takes everybody's processes that long to get it into time enough to get the tax bills out, and you have 60 days to pay. Now, if you'll think back of the type of society we used to be, which was agrarian, it also worked out perfectly. When was the one time of the year that the farmer had money in his pocket? In the late fall. Well, voila, when are the taxes due? The late fall. So it kind of worked out that way too.
Well, is there a penalty though, if you pay it on the 31st? Is there a penalty?
There's no penalty yet at that point in time, but there would be 2% interest by that point in time.
Is that legal?
Yes.
If it's due on
Yeah.
December 31st, that is
No,
legal?
they're due on November the 15th.
So by law, the property tax runs from January 1st to December 31st.
Well, the liability is created on January the 1st. You have until November the 15th to pay that liability. Otherwise, you start paying interest. After it's 90 days late, that's when the 10% penalty kicks in. So on February the 15th, that's when you get the 10%
And
penalty.
I won't bother the heck out of it.
Anyone else? Anyone in the back?
I have a question. I've got a big mouth, so I'll just talk loud. Dan, would you tell us what you think about property values? And do you think that the values have bottomed out based on the economic conditions we're currently facing? And what are your thoughts on that in terms of, you know, our house values?
Well, the number one thing is driving those numbers right now, and those values are the foreclosures. Foreclosures are still up. They're trending down slightly, but nothing to brag about yet. We had around 2,400 foreclosures in 2009, I think it was, around 3,010. In 2011, it dropped to about 1,600. We're going to probably hit 18, well, maybe it's 1,800, probably be another close to 1,800 even this year. So that's the trend that I'm watching. When we see foreclosures finally, and gosh, there's got to be an end to that somewhere. We can't foreclose on everybody's house. That's the turnaround point, is when we really start seeing foreclosures, you know, rapidly drop off. And when that happens, then all of that, they call it the shadow inventory, will slowly be absorbed. And because the banks are selling the houses on, you know, for 50 cents on the dollar, that depresses my value, your value. So until we get all that shadow inventory cleared out of here, then we will see values come back up to a normal level.
Dan, it's my experience that the tax assessor's office calls a foreclosure an unqualified sale, and they will not consider that foreclosed price in determining the assessed value the house?
All right, two things that happens. The price at the courthouse steps, usually 99% of the time is bought back in at the bank, by the bank. And you don't want to count that sale because the bank has to bid it in for what's owed on the loan. They can't bid it in for any less than that. So that's not the value. But when they turn right around, let's say 6 months later, and sell that house for 50 cents on the dollar, they have to count that sale as the taxable value the following year, whether it's a seller or not.
They will not do that.
By law, they have to.
They don't do it. They say it's an unqualified sale, and they will not consider it.
Yeah,
I don't know how to, I've been down that road.
yeah.
So by law, the bank can buy the foreclosure back.
Oh, yeah, the bank's opening bid is gonna be what's owed on the loan. If you wanna buy from the bank, you gotta bid $1 more. And that's why you don't really have that many houses being bought at the courthouse steps. There are a lot of people out there, but, you know, unless the bank's willing to take less, but I don't think they will. And what I understand, what drives a lot of that is if they renegotiate the loan and they take a loss, the bank absorbs it. If it's a federally guaranteed loan, they foreclose on it, sell it for 50 cents on the dollar, the bank is made whole by you and I, the taxpayers, vis-a-vis the federal government. So there's no incentive for them to take that loss when the federal government, if it's VA, FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all of those things that are government loans, the bank is made whole.
And I was gonna say, I think there's, what you have to look at in terms of valuation are, you've got one set of valuation that has to do with the tax assessed value, and one set of rules that belong to that assessment there, that valuation. You have a second set of rules that belong to the private appraisal valuation when you're trying to sell it or refinance it, and that's a separate set of values, and it can get quite confusing, but they're two separate sets of rules.
All right, any more questions? Yes, got one over here.
My question is, when you purchase a home for the tax liens on the steps, I had heard that the people that previously owned it had a certain length of time that could come back and get it.
That is correct. When you buy a piece of property at the courthouse from me through a tax sale, what you receive here in Georgia is a tax deed. The tax deed is really just a super senior lien that sits on top of everything. It's superior even to the mortgage. And the owner or the bank or anybody who has an interest in the property has the right to redeem that property within that year. At the conclusion of the year, the person who bought it at the tax sale has to go through a foreclosure process. And what they're doing is foreclosing on anybody's right to redeem the property.
So it's a year.
It's a year, yes, yes. And the kicker to the investor, there are usually two types of people at a tax sale. One, those who are really interested in getting the property, and you'll see them bid minimal. And then you have those investors who are hoping to get the return. They're hoping they get redeemed because the return to the investor is 20%. Of course, it's a risky proposition. You can wind up with the property, so you got to be careful how high you bid. The house could burn down because you can't buy insurance on it. The people could file bankruptcy, which can tie you up into a bankruptcy court for 5 years.
So technically, you can't do anything for a year.
That is correct. That's one of the things that we're kind of seeing at catch-22 right now, is that a lot of these abandoned homes, the investors were buying them, and the first thing that happened, they get a letter from code enforcement saying, y'all come out here and cut the grass. Well, technically speaking, the tax sale buyer can't even walk on the property. They could be arrested for trespass. And so here's the county or the city trying to get the lot cleaned up, and the tax sale buyer really has no rights to go on the property. He has no rights to the property except for one. The only right is that he has to pay the homeowners association dues. And
So technically, he's a bank.
he holds a senior lien. He has a senior lien on the property, exactly. and his return is 20% if the person or the bank or somebody wants to redeem it. Otherwise, at the end of the year, he can foreclose on it and he gets the property.
All right, we have one more, thank you.
Kind of a follow-up to the tax lien question. I did purchase a tax lien a couple of years ago, and I was surprised the following year to get a tax bill for the next year. So when you're buying the tax lien, you're taking on future responsibility for the taxes as well.
Correct. And the reason why you want to do that is because you don't want me to turn right around and sell it again and then have a tax lien sitting on top of your tax lien. So you want to make sure those taxes get paid because you want to secure and maintain your you want to maintain your superiority in your position, so you want to make sure those taxes get paid. Now, as the investor, if somebody wants to redeem that property and you've paid the taxes on it, you get to add that to the redemption fee, and they got to pay you 20% on top of that also. So you're made whole as the investor for paying those taxes.
All right, we got enough time for one or two more questions. Anybody? Okay.
I got another one. I always have one more question. Just a moment ago, you mentioned 1,800 houses this year. Every one of those houses had a mortgagee or mortgagor on it. And are they the ones responsible to you to pay those taxes? And how hard do you chase them? And how do they duck you?
They don't duck it.
That 4/10 that I can't collect are usually they're in bankruptcy, or it's such a junky piece of property nobody will buy it. Now, I've got a few of those around if you're interested.
Might even be in your neighborhood.
Anyone else? Anybody else? If not, that's going to conclude our part of the meeting.